just reached the end of 2023, meaning if they haven't already, people are going to start listing out their top games of the year. I mean, I don't know about some of you, I don't play like too many games that come out in a single year. Like my top games this year were Halo Infinite, Starfield, and Minecraft. I don't have enough I've played in the year 2023 to make a list of like what I think was best, but I have played lots of games. I'd make a list of my top 10 games of each, I say console generation, it's kind of a block of years because I know some console generations kind of overlap. This list is kind of like personally what games I played, my top 10 games. It doesn't mean an objective top best games, but that does mean this is opening up a conversation of what were your top 10 best games of each generation. I'd love to see everybody kind of put theirs in the comments and we can talk about what everyone played. For each generation, I'm going to start at 10, which is the lowest ranked on this list because these are all games I thought were amazing, and then work my way to the number one game of each generation. So starting with the OG Xbox, I've got number 10, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I know lots of people loved this game and it was great. I was just really young at the time, so I've actually never gone all the way through and beaten it, but I had a lot of fun like seeing my dad play it and messing with the text, like the choices, the RPG elements of the game. I remember thinking the armor looked really cool, and I played lots of this game when I was a kid, and it makes this list because of it. Number 9 on the original Xbox generation, we've got Star Wars Battlefront 2. I played lots of this game. This was like my original FPS multiplayer. You know, it set the tone for how I would enjoy matchmaking in like later games like Call of Duty and whatnot. Yeah, I remember my favorite is Kashyyyk. I played that map so much. And again, I was just young and I never went all the way through its campaign. That'll be a common trend on this OG Xbox list of me just being a kid and picking games that I just remember the most fondly is most of this list here. And that takes us into number 8, Call of Duty 2, the big red one. I remember playing through this Call of Duty campaign. It was probably one of the first campaigns I played all the way through. Maybe because it was simple enough, just kind of the shooting gallery type of deal. I remember certain sections getting stuck. I believe there was this graveyard where you get pinned down by an MG42. I remember like talking with kids in school, super young, about being caught up because I think he had this game too. We were talking about being pinned down in the graveyard, so that puts it on the list for me. I remember that campaign pretty clearly for how long ago it was. Number 7, the original Splinter Cell game. I remember my dad owning this game. I remember him liking this game, and I remember playing through the tutorial of the game quite a few times. But another one that was way too difficult for little kid me to play. I just have vivid memories of how cool the aesthetic was and me wanting to play it even though I didn't know how to. Number 6, The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. This is a game we rented when there were movie rental places that had the video game section. We rented this game over and over and over again. It was so much fun. And even like as an adult looking back on this game, how big the open world was and how much you could do in it, like just the sandbox of this game was pretty crazy, I think, for the time. And it was so much fun as a kid to feel like the freedom of going everywhere and destroying everything. So that gets it. It's pretty high up on this list here. Number 5 is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. This was like top tier platforming back then. It was the way it tied in with SpongeBob, the way it appealed to a SpongeBob loving audience. It was just a lot of fun as a kid. And I was super excited when they remade it and was able to play it as an adult. And it was still fun. It's a testament to how good that game was, that it was still fun to play many years later. Number 4, Spider-Man 2. This is probably one of the first games I remember buying. Like, I think I saved up some birthday money and we went to the store on my birthday and I bought Spider-Man 2. The way the web swinging was so much fun, the combat, it was such a fun game to play as a kid that it had to make this list for me. Even back then it reviewed really good. Number 3, Halo 2. This is, again, another game where like the story beats and themes were way above my little kid head. I don't even know if I beat the game, because as a little kid, the missions we were playing as the Arbiter just aren't as interesting because you have no idea what's going on. But I remember playing tons of the local multiplayer with my brother, and I mean, it's a Halo game, come on. It was still lots of fun to play, even though I didn't really know everything that was going on. Number 2, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. This was my first video game. The Christmas morning my dad got us our original Xbox, he had been up all night playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I know this because when he presented it to us, on the screen, he would been like, he was at the police station, like spawned at the police station, meaning he had been playing the game and got arrested and was at the police station. And that was my introduction to gaming entirely, was Grand Theft Auto Vice City. We had an agreement with my mom that we could only drive around in the game. So we would get in the cars, drive around, explore the map, but we didn't do missions or play the game like as intended, because I mean, obviously with all the blood and violence and cursing and everything else, we weren't allowed to mess with that. But I still have lots of memories of like the music, the vibe, driving into different cars. It was so much fun to play. And that's why it's number 2. And if it isn't obvious enough, number 1 on my OG Xbox games ranking is Halo Combat Evolved. I mean, I've got other videos and everything else on why this game is so special to me. And yeah, I mean, it's still one of my favorite video games to this day. So yeah, that's number 1 of that generation for me, Halo Combat Evolved. Moving into the Xbox 360 generation, my number 10 game of the 360 generation is Far Cry 3. I remember there was a Christmas break where I played a few prominent games that I remember forever throughout this Christmas break. Far Cry 3 was one of them. It would have been sometime, you know, after the game initially came out. I didn't play it on launch. I discovered after the fact when it was like 20 bucks at Walmart or something. But the story at the time really blew me away. It was a lot of fun to play, and some of those like survival-ish mechanics were pretty fun. And that memorable mission with the memorable song, if you know what I'm talking about. There's stuff like that at like 13 years old was mind-blowing, and I still remember it as a really good game to play even now. Moving on to number 9, Fallout 3. I remember getting this with a double pack of Oblivion because my cousins really loved those Elder Scrolls games, and I got Oblivion, and I ended up gravitating more towards Fallout 3. I remember when I first plugged this game in, I was playing in my basement with the lights off for some reason. I'm not a big horror game person, and this is not a horror game, but I left the vault and I go across the street to the elementary school and got absolutely jump scared by some raiders in there. It was ridiculous, and I remember I didn't play it for a while after that, but I ended up really liking it, and the vibe was just creepy enough to keep me like cautious, and it really built the atmosphere of the world for me, and I really enjoyed my play through Fallout 3, and that's why it's on this list, because I mean, I'll always love Fallout after that. It was just so much fun to play. Number 8 is Guitar Hero Aerosmith. And I know it's a silly one to put on the list, but this game was a huge deal to me back in the day. It got me into like the music I listened to. Like, this game defined the music I listened to for the next like 3 or 4 years after that time. And then I really loved all of the Guitar Hero games, and this was my first one that I owned. I had played some, my friends had, and yeah, for Christmas I think my dad and mom worked together to get us a couple pre-owned guitars and Guitar Hero Aerosmith, and that was, at that point in time, I mean, this is one of the best Christmases ever. It was so much fun. I remember him watching and like not understanding how we were doing it, and I think he thought it was cool that we were connecting so well with the music he grew up with. That just makes the game pretty important to me. 7, Black Ops 2. So Black Ops 2, story-wise, was awesome. I remember it was around freshman year for me in high school, and my buddies would sit around and we'd talk about like each of the branching paths we found after we'd all beaten the game, and discovering different things about the endings of the game. And then the multiplayer is a huge part of why this is on this list, because that game was massive, and we all played that for so long. I mean, it was the only game I remember where everyone loved it and played it enough to where I had a group of my buddies over, them as well as my younger brothers and we all threw a big Black Ops 2 tournament, because we were all like thinking we were the best at this game. And it was funny because I don't even remember who won the tournament. It might have been my youngest brother, which is pretty hilarious, but I don't remember. It might have been one of my friends. I just remember that night being really fun, and it kind of, that's why that game means a lot, because so many different people played it and had a lot of fun with it. Number 6, Splinter Cell Conviction. Again, a kind of surprise for a list like this. Most people wouldn't have this game on there. Early in my 360 days, I picked up this game. It's one of the first games I bought for the 360. I remember really enjoying its campaign, and again getting this sense of like connection to my dad, because I know he liked the earlier games. It's a pretty common thing with me. I liked trying to enjoy and play what I felt like my dad enjoyed. Yeah, I ended up really falling in love with like the stealth action element of Splinter Cell through this game, which is why it's on the list. Number 5, Grand Theft Auto 4. Grand Theft Auto 4 had an amazing story, and I actually am really due to replay it, because there's a lot of it. It was so big and I was so young, you know, like 13 at the time, where it's like I don't remember all of it. I definitely need to go back and revisit it because I have a feeling some of the references and jokes they make as an adult would be a lot funnier than when I was a kid. Also, too, this was the first game that had a big part, like the online element of it was a lot of fun. And I remember playing with a group of dedicated friends to the game, and we play Grand Theft Auto 4 all night long, murdering each other at that dockyard that you always spawned at for some reason. And I've said it in another video, but it's also the game where like my now wife and I, we would chat through Xbox Live because it was a lot cheaper than a phone plan. So we played a lot of Grand Theft Auto 4 together, and that makes it pretty important to me and why it's on the list. Number 4, we got Skyrim. Skyrim's probably on everybody's Xbox 360 like top 10 list. I don't know how it wouldn't be. It's such a big and awesome looking game. So many side quests, so many memorable side quests, and they really made you feel like you were discovering secrets every time you went down an unexplored route. It was when the Bethesda formula was really at its best, firing on all cylinders, was Skyrim. And even though I joined that party late, it was really an important experience for me on the Xbox 360. 3, we have Mafia 2. Probably another surprise for some people. I remember when Grand Theft Auto 4 kind of came out, and it was everything everybody at school was talking about. There was a kid who lived in the neighborhood next to ours who was really into this Mafia 2 game. And he was trying to convince some of my other friends that like it was way better than Grand Theft Auto 4, and nobody believed him. It wasn't until a few years later, a close friend of mine who was obsessed with Mafia 2, he ended up telling me about the game. We'd be sitting in class daydreaming, talking about video games, and he would be talking about this game he absolutely loved. So eventually I got it on sale or something, $20 at Walmart, classic, and I played through it, and man, was it a good story. It was probably one of the first games that made me, like, I finished a story, and you just get that, like, it was like finishing a good book. I think it was honestly one of the first times I felt that in a video game, where you just have to kind of lean back and go, oh my gosh, and you have to like get yourself out of that world for like a day or two. It was one of those games for me, one of the first to do it, which is what makes it so special. Number 2, we have Grand Theft Auto 5. This is one of the first games I pre-ordered ever. This game was massive in every way you could imagine. And I remember beating the story within like a week or two of playing almost non-stop. Everyone at school was talking about it and waiting for online to release the next week or so later. It was a really special time in the 360 era. I don't think any other game could dominate a generation like that. I mean, we're 2 generations later and people are still playing this game in the millions. It's pretty ridiculous. So number 1 for the 360 generation, even though it's not a 360 game, is The Last of Us. I did play this game a little bit later. I played it like in that weird blurry line between Xbox One and 360, so it's on the 360 list, all right? The story of this game was ridiculous. Again, just another one of those games right at the end of that generation that hit me hard. Like, man, I really like playing video games for the stories. The gameplay can be fun, the gameplay can be even mid, to be honest, but man, if that story hits just right, you can't beat that in a video game. Video games tell these stories in such unique ways, they just demand my attention. I love playing stories like this, where they're really well thought out and like human and down to earth. Yeah, that puts The Last of Us number 1 on my 360 list. So we have the Xbox One generation. It's weird to say that we're now behind the Xbox One generation. My number 10 game for the Xbox One generation would be Halo 5. And that sounds kind of weird because a lot of people don't like Halo 5, and that's valid and that's fine. I thought the multiplayer was a lot of fun, and I threw it on here mainly for the multiplayer aspect of it. It was the main game I played for like the second half of this generation, and I couldn't not put it on the list of my favorites, just due to how much time I sunk into it. Partially connected to this, number 9 of the Xbox One generation was Destiny. My friends and I in high school ended up sinking a ton of time into Destiny 1. The multiplayer was a lot of fun. We also switched the experience up. We would go into PvE and do, you know, a raid, missions, do the contracts, and then we would pop out, maybe get some new loot, re-equip, and then go into the multiplayer and have a good time and just circle that. That was a lot of fun. We played so much Destiny. The reason I got into Halo 5 was because eventually some of the weapon balancing in the multiplayer for Destiny, because it's connected to a PvE experience, I was drawn to the fair starts of Halo 5. But that came from how much fun I had in Destiny with its longer time to kill and some of the differences from Call of Duty. Number 8 is A Way Out. I don't know if you know about this game because it wasn't like the biggest thing ever. It was a co-op multiplayer game where you could only play with another person. And it had one of the most interesting stories because of this. It was so cool. If you really haven't heard of this game or played it, I recommend getting a friend or somebody and playing this game with them, because I think it showed what a co-op experience in the modern day can be. I mean, my friend and I played it mostly online, and it was still a ton of fun and a great co-op experience. It was so cool to discover that I had to throw it on a top 10 list of the generation. Number 7, The Long Dark. This, again, another game you might not have heard of, but it was an indie developer making this survival game. I remember looking around the Xbox store and seeing this indie game called The Long Dark. I was hooked the minute I read the description. Though at the time I was like, I don't know if I can spend like the $20 for early access or whatever, but I remember being excited about it, and I read the description to my friend, who then bought it, who then convinced me, no, this is really worth it. This is The Long Dark is a thoughtful exploration survival experience that challenges solo players to think for themselves as they explore an expansive frozen wilderness in the aftermath of a geomagnetic disaster. There are no zombies, only you, the cold, and all the threats Mother Nature can muster. Hooked, got me. And then since then, it's gotten tons of updates, and it was such a cool and unique survival experience that I had to throw it on the list. My friend and I stunk so much time into this game, and he still does. I do too, but I fly through games so much, and I'm always drawn back to FPS, so it makes it a little hard to stick with it. Number 6, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I played this game right up at the end of this generation, but man, was this game good. It was ridiculous. Playing it with headphones, if you haven't heard of this game, you need to check it out. It's super cool, super atmospheric. It looks a little like a horror game, but trust me, it's not, and I'm super excited for the sequel. But yeah, this game just had a crazy impact on me playing it. Again, just another new experience of what a video game could do for a player to tell a story. For that, I had to throw it on the list. Number 5, Mafia Definitive Edition. Knowing I love Mafia 2, when I heard they were remaking the first one that I never played from the original Xbox, I was pretty excited to play it. But man, when it came out, it blew me away. After the little bit of a disappointment that Mafia 3 was, while they didn't write the story, but just everything they did to enhance it was like perfect for a Mafia game. And I remember playing it through the first time. It wasn't like I was playing a remake. I was playing a game for the first time, and it was super cool and super well done. It just, all it could do was make me excited for whatever they could do for Mafia 4. Number 4, Spider-Man PS4. The Marvel's Spider-Man, whatever the title is supposed to be. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. You got some stuff in here now. Second one's out now. I need to play it. I only just got it. Shout out to my amazing wife and I think the title's brother-in-law. They put together this cool PlayStation that I need to play more rather than make these videos. Okay. Spider-Man PS4 was a great Spider-Man game, and for that, it made it instantly one of my favorites because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. The web swinging was so well done. The suits were so well done. They add, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man suit, which is just like huge fan service to a nerd like me who grew up watching those movies. I don't even know what to say about it. It was just a ton of fun to play it, a solid Spider-Man story, and I'm really excited to start the second one. Number 3, God of War. Another one I finished right up at the end of this generation because I didn't get a PS4 until they were really cheap, like used. So God of War 2018, man, that was a cool game to play. Just the weight and all the design of the game just felt heavy. Just something you don't get from a lot of video games. Where like every time you press that button to throw that axe, it was ridiculous and a lot of fun to play through. A super engaging story, and I mean, I was like listening to like unrelated Norse mythology videos because I was so interested on like the characters and what was happening in the story and how it related to real life Norse mythology. It was super well done game. Had to throw it way up there on the generation list. Number 1 and 2 of this generation are tough ones for me. I mean, just depending on the mood I'm in. One's number 1, another's number 2. It flips. I don't know. Hate me for it. These are both the best games of this generation. Number 2, for now, for me, officially, kind of, is The Last of Us Part 2. And I know I might get some flack for this. That game was super controversial when it came out. I get it. I understand. We can talk about that separate. I would love to do a Last of Us Part 2 video. If you want to see that and like my full, like some really deep critical thoughts on it, I'd love to make one because man, this game was awesome for me. And I love talking about it. Now, The Last of Us Part 2 was wild for me because I'm here for the storytelling and the way in which they make you like hate the game you're playing while you're loving playing it. Putting you in the shoes of the character you're playing is ridiculous. I think that was the intention, was to feel these intense emotions that weren't always comfortable. And I understand why people hated that. It makes sense. You're playing a video game, you want to just have fun. And kind of like the first one was, where the story was incredibly emotional and that drove you to play through the game, or that emotion, like the attachment you had to Ellie. The second game did something insane with the fact that it could make you hate what the characters were doing. I think it was meant to make you think about that. For a video game to just pull something like that off and do it so intentionally was amazing. Yeah, way up there for me on games of the generation. Maybe to no surprise, number 1 of the Xbox One generation is Red Dead Redemption 2. What do I even have to say about this game? The attention to detail, the graphics, the story. I mean, the fact that it's a prequel to another really good game and the way they tie together so well because of it. Writing that story with that mind, I mean, an incredible game for that generation. I mean, the fact that this thing plays and looks as good as it does on Xbox One, I don't even understand it, man. And I remember the game coming out, and I remember it being the only thing I played till I beat it. It was just a really cool time. And the story hit me pretty good. I was super invested into it. I still go back through and try and play through to try and find stuff I didn't find the first time. And I don't do that for a lot of games. Usually I beat them, especially story games. I beat them and I'm kind of done with them. So the fact that I go back in here and still find new stuff and care to find new stuff is a pretty good testament to how good this game is. But yeah, so that sums up my top 10 games of each generation or time period for the consoles. I'd love to know yours below. Maybe you agreed with mine, maybe you don't agree with mine. Maybe because of these games you have some games you recommend that I should try that I might like. All of those sort of comments are welcome below. I'd love to see it. And so if you want to know a little bit more about maybe my journey as a gamer, or to get that feeling of like nostalgia from the past, check out this video. Thanks for watching.